Now, for me personally, when I look back 3 years, the three headlines that come up for me that are most prevalent in my life would be I produced a television show at that moment. I had been to Los Angeles twice in an effort to try to sell that television production. And it was the beginning of the end of my marriage at that time. I had since divorced, but my marriage was unraveling at that point in my past. Again, the most important thing is for you to come up with three prevalent headlines. They could be positive or they could be challenges. I don't want you to judge the headline. Just come up with the first thing that strikes you when you think about you in that moment in time. At any point, if you want to stop the recording, please do so, because we're just going to plug right on through. Now we're going to go on to the next phase, going further back into the past, which for me would be the year 2005, and I believe I'm 29 at this point. I had just left the corporate job working in investments. That was my first headline. At that time, I remember I was also pursuing a career in acting, but it was also at that time, it was the beginning of the end of my identity as an actor. And also in 2005, I had probably the biggest breakdown of my life. And I'm not shy about that. I'm not shy about telling you that. Now that I'm bearing my soul to you, we're going to go back even further into the past. And again, I'm going to remind you just one more time, if at any time I'm going too fast, please feel free to pause this recording and really think about your three headlines for each phase of life. We're going to go back another 3 years in my case, to the year 2002. And I think at that time, what was I, 26? I was 26 at that point. When I was 26, I got married. I had been fired from a job, and I also spent a lot of my time back in 2002 with comedy. I did a lot of comedy sketches. I created a lot of comedic characters. Maybe some of them will come up later on in this program. I'm not sure yet. But that is how I spent my 2002. We're going to go back another 3 years in my case. For you, it might be another 4 years, 5 years. Again, it depends on the first number of your age. But I'm going to go back to the year 1999. I was 23 years old, and I had just moved out on my own around that time, so I was alone quite a bit. Also in that time, I had the worst criticism I've ever received from somebody about my acting ability and about my passion, so it kind of felt like I was hit upside the head with a lot of negative stuff that year. And I remember I was just out of college, and after I had just moved into a new area, a new urban area, which I wasn't used to, I probably had about 2 or 3 jobs that year. So I was having a very difficult time finding my identity and finding my voice back in 1999. Okay, so once again, if you need more time, please do not hesitate to pause this recording and really get centered on what your next 3 headlines will be. So we're going to go back another 3 years in my case. The year is 1996. I am 20 years old. At that point, I had first started dating the woman who I would end up marrying. I was riding a great wave of theatrical success at the time. I think I was playing 3 or 4 lead roles with a bunch of different theater companies, and I felt very confident about my acting abilities and my artistic abilities. And it was also around that time I made the conscious decision to stop studying theater in college and make the decision to learn more about business, to become a business major. And that was a very important decision in my life, and I believe I made that in 1996 at the age of 20 years old. Okay, so we're going to go back even further. Now for me, it's another 3 years prior. The year is 1993, and I'm 17 years old. I remember being in high school. I was a junior in high school at that point, desperately wanting to have a girlfriend, and it just wouldn't happen. So that was my first headline in 1993. At that time, I was also very passionate about theater. I think I did about 8 productions that year. Again, that was 1993. And I also had my first car accident at that time. So that really rattled me. So that is one of the things that stood out to me, that sticks out to me when I think about that time frame. So those are my 3 headlines for 1993. Hey, how you holding up? How are your headlines going? We're going to go through a couple more of these. We want to get you back to around the age of 6, 5, or 4. So we're going to go back another couple years. Again, it depends on your age. I am going to go back another 3 years to the year 1990. I was 14 years old. That was the year my parents moved from the Philadelphia area to a more rural area. So I had the culture shock of going from one culture to another. It was around that time also that I picked up playing football. and I got a lot of confidence and confidence in my physical body because I was playing football, and I very much enjoyed that. And it was also that time when we moved away that I started taking another martial art. I had studied karate for quite a number of years, and I was being acquainted with a new martial art, which was Taekwondo. So it was neat to not only experience the cultural differences between the suburban, urban area and the rural area, but also the cultural differences between these two martial arts. Okay, we're going to go back even further now. For me personally, the year is 1987. I am 11 years old. That was around the time where I experienced a couple of different things that boosted my confidence. Throughout elementary school, I wish I could say I was a nerd, but saying I was a nerd would imply that I was smart and good at school, which I wasn't. So I had the stereotypical look of a nerd. So I guess that would be my first headline, was that I went from a nerd, but I got my black belt in martial arts at that moment. At that period of time in 1987, and that was one of my confidence boosts. Another thing that happened that year was I got contact lenses for the first time. So I had a complete metamorphosis of being received as that stereotypical nerdy type of guy and being a little bit more confident and more in my physical presence. So to put that in 3 headlines was, I started out the year as looking like a big nerd. I ended the year having a black belt in martial arts, and I also ended the year having a new pair of contacts. Almost there. We're just going to go through 2 more rounds of this. So I'm going to go back another 3 years, and the year is 1984. I am 8 years old. That was around the time I first started taking martial arts, so that would be my first headline. My second headline was, I remember not really taking my education very seriously because I was bullied every single day that I went to school. So I was more fearful for my own personal safety than for actually learning anything in school. So that would be my second headline. Oh, and the third headline would be that that was around the time, I don't know if it was our first or second trip, but we went to Disney World, and that's always a headline for a kid who's 8 years old. Okay, this is the last one, and if the calculations are correct, you should be in your early childhood at this point. So when I go back another 3 years, the year is 1981. I'm around 5 or 6 years old at that point. So I guess the major headlines for me at that time, wow, if I can even remember, I guess I was in nursery school at that moment, and I remember loving to play drama games even then. I would always get the kids together and play Wizard of Oz, or play Popeye, or play any of the other, like Super Friends, or any of the other cartoons or movies that were big at that time. So that was something that was really big for me, and that was a headline. I think I got stung by a bee. I remember getting stung by a bee at the time when I was 5 years old. So that was my first brush with thinking I was a big boy, but then when that bee stung me and it hurt so bad, I wasn't such a big boy as I thought I was. And the last one, I remember on a snowy day, I was playing with a bunch of boys who acted like my best friend. And I remember the next day when I would try to be friendly with these guys because I thought of them as my buddies, they acted like they didn't know me and they didn't want to have anything to do with me. So again, that was a headline. It comes up for me when I'm thinking about it, but it starts to get into some of the things that have formed your opinions even today. So now we've gone all the way back through your childhood, and we're going to put this together now in a script, which will represent the past so that you can understand the future and your 60-day quest. So we're going to begin our second exercise in just a moment.